San Bernardino, the Colton Crossing, which has been like 100 and some years of problems, just opened up officially on Wednesday. So that has been restraining Metrolink from San Bernardino for many, many years, and now there's potential more improvements in the San Bernardino Riverside area because of the Colton Crossing. That's really good news. There's lots of developments in places like Metro. The mayor brought in 3 new directors along with the mayor, and they already had their first board meeting, and the second board meeting in mid-September. Metro's been upgrading. We used to have the screen that came down. Now we have a big, wonderful screen and new technology, so we'll see what we can do. If the lights still want to turn out so we can see the screen, we'll never know with the technology, but we'll work it. In addition to that, there's one other piece. Oh, I know. We went to Sacramento. Transit Coalition went to Sacramento. One of the things that you may or may not know is there's been an issue with getting grants because the Labor Secretary decided that he didn't want to give grants because of a law that was passed 40 years ago. LA Times did an editorial on it. We've been writing about it on our electronic newsletter for those that get it. And we were busy educating elected officials in Sacramento because Jerry tells Art Leahy that, you don't like this, just sue them. It's like Art says, well, I'm asking them for $2 billion. Why would I want to sue somebody that I'm asking for money? So it's a difficult dilemma, and hopefully there'll be some progress on solving it. Up until the 16th of August, a couple $100 million was being withheld from Metro. Other transit properties were talking about laying off 40 or 50% of their operating employees, and the looks didn't look too good. And so on the 16th, the federal secretary said they're going to give some more time. So I don't know where the negotiations are going, but it's such an inside baseball issue that it's hard to explain, it's hard to describe. But on the other hand, when people get laid off from jobs and people that use transit can't get to work, school, or to the doctor, it affects all of us. So the objective is to let the elected officials know that we know about it and we want them to figure out what to do. I don't know what they need to do, but they need to figure out what to do, and they could figure it out. And let's see, also, the last development until we introduce the speaker is I actually had lunch today. They're working on, they're working on the concept of the rail between the valley and the city, and as that comes along, then there'll be some more matters coming out next year, but everybody asks where is it. They're working on reports and financial analysis to see if it will pencil out, and they know that they have to bring in so much revenue to either put a train line or a toll road underneath the 405, and they're working to figure that out. So now, hello, welcome.
Thank you.
We have tonight our speaker on the Union Station master plan. I'm not going to be the one that knows anything about Union Station because that's Jenna's job. I think I met Jenna when you were with Community Development Agency. So it's been a long time. The city has changed. All the good people from CRA came over to Metro, so now Metro is really doing some really good stuff. I've been to some of the CRA meetings, the Union Station planning meetings, and I think, personally, finally things are being done right. They're asking the right questions. The people that are involved are getting involved. Like Russell, are you happy with what's going on? So Russell goes to a lot of the meetings and all. So with that, welcome. I'm going to introduce Jenna, and she's ready to talk, and you know who the people are. So maybe you tell a little about yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I won't turn off the lights yet.
Daniel.
So my
Dan
name
Miller.
is Jenna Hornstock. I work here in Countywide Planning at Metro. As Bart mentioned, I'm a CRA refugee. I was at the redevelopment agency for almost 7 years. So my background is more in finance and real estate development, but generally kind of project management. And when I was talking about coming over, I said, I'm not a major planner. And they said, we want a project manager. We want to get a project done. We want to think about implementation all along the way and ask a lot of tough questions. And I I know, this is gonna be the premier redevelopment project of the city in so many different ways, from the transit to the placemaking to the impact on communities. So I thought it was such a great opportunity, so that's why I made it over here. Before that, I've worked in affordable housing. I worked briefly for Mayor Hahn, actually, back in 2001 in economic development. Prior to that, I had a short life in the private sector in management consulting, but it was a long time ago. So, that's about me. I'm local. I used to be a transit user when I lived in Los Feliz, and I took the red line to CRA, but I live in Silver Lake and I have a 6-year-old, and it's just impossible, unfortunately, to take transit. So that's my status as a transit user. So I'm not sure, I know some of you have seen iterations and variations of this presentation many times. What I try to do is take, I think, the juiciest information from different presentations we've done at our community workshops, and I'm assuming that some of you don't know anything about where we've been and some of you know a lot, so to give a little bit to everybody and answer some of your questions. I'll probably move on the quick-ish side. All of these slides in some form are on our webpage, as well as our community workshops. You can stream them, so all of this information is available pretty easily. So quick, the outline of the presentation is to just tell you what our scope and schedule for this project is. I'm going to recap our first task, which was completed. We're currently in the second task, and I'll talk to you about where we're at in that by talking about the evolution of the station in stages, and then talk you through the next steps and let you ask questions. So the schedule and scope, we purchased this property in April 2011, and since most of you are transit geeks, you probably know that Catellus owned it, and we were just a tenant here for many years. And since our board directed us to undertake a master plan, we went through an iterative process to select a firm. And in June of 2012, the board approved Gruen Associates as the prime. Grimshaw Architects are our design lead. We are working with their New York office, but they're an international firm, and they're headquartered in London, and they've done a lot of transit architecture work across the world. We started in August of 2012 with a 24-month process, so we're 1 year in, and we're on track.
What's NTP?
Sorry, notice to proceed.
What is it?
Notice to proceed means we started. It means our contract was in place and it was okay for them to start doing things that we have to pay them for. Our work is organized into 3 tasks, and this used to say 5 community workshops. We're adding 1 more. So we've held 3 community workshops. We're going to have one between, in the middle of our final plan development, and you'll see that in the next slide. So this is our project timeline. So we spent the first 8 months in a very intensive data collection and programming stage, where they did everything from putting cameras up in the station, including almost getting it shut down one day because one of them looked like a bomb on the thing. And thank God someone found the right person in the morning and did not shut the station down at rush hour time. It didn't look how they said it was going to look. The camera box guy looked different. They did that. They did studying all the data that we had. We studied everything we knew about high-speed rail. We looked at ridership projections. We looked at every visionary plan around the station that we could. We looked at the parking on site, we looked at the Alameda District specific plan, and we came up with 9 technical memoranda documenting this and a program. And for those of you that work in architecture engineering, our program was not your typical, this is a box and this many square feet are for housing and this much is for retail and this much is for that. It was too complicated to do that because we have all these existing transit functions on the site. So instead the program is based on some guiding principles, and I'll lay those out for you. But what the program did do with those guiding principles is lead us into identifying what the key design solutions are that we need to solve for. And we started that in the second task that we're still in, which is the draft master plan alternatives. This is an iterative process, and I'm going to take you through that. We will go to our board with a workshop, and we invite all of you to come to that on September 18th, where we will talk to them. It's a special workshop, a 1 focus item, only this. On September 18th at 3:30. And then in October, at the regular scheduled board meeting, we will ask the board to take action and go down from 4 alternatives to 1 alternative. Going forward from there with that 1 alternative, that will get more fully developed, because what you'll see today is it's a nice plan and idea, but it's not a fully developed master plan yet. So that will go on from October through about next spring, because we plan to go to the board in the summer with our final master plan recommendation. Now, in that 3rd task, when they're developing the final plan, they will also be developing several technical memoranda on implementation. So they'll look at governance structures, of other similar kinds of projects. They'll look at financing, they'll look at phasing issues, they'll look at design guidelines, CEQA, everything we need to go straight into implementation. So we'll go to the board with a plan along with an action plan. This is our property, so the sepia color is the sepia colored area here is what we own. It's about 47 acres, and we've had a lot of different numbers, and we have verified now 47 acres. We don't own the purple, the MWD. This is the first 5, and this is the mosaic, so we don't own those. You might see that we take a little bit of liberty on a few slides. There are some related and coordinated planning projects that are going on, and I can tell you they're coordinated because I'm responsible for them. One is the wayfinding. One of the first things we heard, and we still hear it, and it's true, is they can't find their way around the station right now. And our stakeholder told us, and our management has said, we got to do something now about the signage at the station. So we are furiously working on a wayfinding plan. We brought in another firm, Selber Perkins Design, who's done a lot of great environmental signage and graphics. And by the time of our 75th anniversary next May, we will have new static signage and some electronic. We're going to have to dig to get some more funding for that, but a really great new signage plan going up in the station, and it's very exciting. The second is a linkages study that's going on. We'd actually gotten a grant a while ago that was kind of floating and hadn't been put into place to look at linkages, and we really repurposed this grant, and we reached out to the city because they weren't initially involved to put together a public improvement plan looking at bicycle and pedestrian linkages to and from the station and the surrounding areas like Chinatown, Civic Center, Little Tokyo, over even to the river and Boyle Heights and beyond. Again, because what we heard from stakeholders was, yeah, you're like a big moat over there and we can't get to you. So you can make it nice, but how do we get there? And so we were able to put together that feedback with this grant. That effort is just now kicking off, and actually we were able to roll into this effort since we're doing a community-driven project looking at bikes and pedestrians. Part of the regional connector project, the Little Tokyo Arts District station at First and Central. I think that's
Oh,
that's
mine.
It sounds like mine. That station, as part of their mitigation and monitoring plan, requires an active transportation improvement plan, and I don't know what you guys follow, but similar to what they did on the Gold Line East Side Extension. So we were able to roll that into the linkages so that rather than having two pretty much the same kind of project, doing a lot of community outreach and coming in with a public improvement plan, we wrap them together. We have our team in place at CityWorks Design. So this is kicking off, so we're getting to look at both around Union Station and around the Little Tokyo Station, which are in themselves, linked, they're really close, putting together this plan. So that has kicked off and will be done at the same time as the master plan. These are some concurrent projects we want to make sure folks know. We assume these are happening, so these are a given in our plan. One is the SCRIP, which is the new technical formal name of the Run Through Tracks project, and one is the Silver Line Bus Rapid Transit Station that'll be connecting into Pat Service Plaza. So this is a recap of our findings from Task 1 and our program. And these are just the key highlights, and I'm showing you these because what you're going to see is that these drove our initial look at what is important for our design solutions. These are the really big problems that stuck out that need to be solved before we can do anything else. This is a circulation diagram of when the station was built, or first came open in 1939, and there was a clarity of circulation. So all the edges were relatively open. There's no east side of the station. You could come in here, and it's all open, there's no buildings. So you could see easily where you're going. Come in, you would buy your ticket and get information on the ticketing hall. You'd wait here, and there were gates, and I don't know how much you go down there, but there's one left, which is going to come down, by the way. That's a sneak preview of the signage. There's one left where it says Gates E and F right in front of the pretzel place. That whole thing used to be gated off, and you only got past it if you had a ticket and you were boarding. So it was clear where you came in, where you bought your ticket, where you waited, and you went to your train, and when you came off a train, there was only one way to go. You came out, and they kind of directed you this way.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
the Silver Line, what is that? Where does it go? What does it
The
do?
Silver Line is bus rapid transit. It's a Metro bus rapid transit, and by the station, it runs all along the 101 freeway here. So there's going to be a new station right here, it's hard to show, over here, alongside the freeway they'll connect in Pat Service Plaza.
That's what connects to El Monte.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
El Monte.
Yeah, they'll get that.
Don't walk to the south.
Yes. So there was a clarity of circulation, and that's actually part, when you talk to historians about this property, that clarity of circulation is part of what's important about this station on the perimeter, how you move through it, on the inside as well. Here it is today, and what I'm going to tell you is people coming in from all over the place. You're blocked by the 101, you're blocked here on the sides by development. A lot of entries actually happen here on the east side, and a lot of folks come in through the passageway. This isn't really the focal point of where your transit action is happening. Oh, this isn't in the right, that's the slide I want to show you next. I'll go back. This slide really was one of the most telling for us, and it further relays this point about circulation issues as well as many other. These circles are the relative number of boardings and alightings. So the size of it is relative to the number of boardings and alightings. It's by the different transit modes. So first you see, here's where everybody's coming in, right, at the passageway, where most folks are coming into the station, which makes sense. They're coming in on all of our conventional rail, light rail, and subway. And one thing to note is when the station was first built, there was about 6,000 people a day. We have about 60,000 bodies a day right now. And it's doing okay. They actually, part of the studies found it's at the worst, at the peak times, at the level of service C or D, which is manageable. But we're going to get up to about 100,000 with the regional connector, and then, according to high-speed rail, at least up to 135,000, assuming they come. And we don't know yet, but with the Sprint project, the run-through tracks will increase capacity further for commuter rail, so we can assume those numbers could go up as well. This area is not going to be able to support all of that traffic as the main entry point. Yeah.
Excuse me, can you use the regular pointer, because we can't
Oh, sorry.
visually
Okay.
see it from here?
Yeah,
Okay, it's not working. I was hoping it would.
The screen.
I thought it was the only one who
Okay.
couldn't see it. Thank
I'll
you.
just point. And then
I got your back.
purple dots are the buses around the site. And we found so many things fascinating about the dysfunction of bus operations on this site. First, you'll notice that they're all around, so you can't walk in the passageway and say buses over there. I mean, we just went through it today trying to figure out how to message for buses and the different kinds of bus riders. It is so difficult. So 60% are on the perimeter. There are as many people boarding and alighting at the corner of Cesar Chavez and Vignes as there are on Pat Service Plaza. And are you aware of that lovely corner and its amenities? There would be a jail, a bunch of bail bond sites, and no shame. A lot of people are getting off there. That is a really heavily trafficked road there for buses along Cesar Chavez, even just for people going through. But the other reason it's heavy traffic is because those buses are all turning the corner to get into Pat Service Plaza, but for no other reason. So there's added travel time. And a lot of people don't want to wait, so they just get off and then they cut across, here to make their transit connection. The other thing is that, this entrance here to Pat Service Plaza is shared by cars going into our garage. So you've got extra traffic conflicts going on. Then you've got all the car, bus, and people conflicts here. Plus you've got the city wanting to make Cesar Chavez a shared bus bike lane. So there are a lot of traffic conflicts, that's the point I want to make. And then finally, there are different kinds of buses at the site, where we have the flyaway here, Megabus. Bolt is actually going to come. Greyhound is going to have a bay for Bolt initially up front, but eventually they're going to come over the plaza. But those mix of buses, the intercity that have to idle, that have luggage, that wait for a while, it's problematic mixing with the buses that come in and out. So that was a really big finding for us, is all of these conflicts with buses and how they're functioning. I want to go back. This is actually just reiterating what I told you about the linkages, which we just heard a lot from folks that was really important to them. It's not just the station, but how it relates to the community around it. These are the ridership. I'm going to try to go faster. This is the ridership we talked about. This is the high-speed rail. This is meant to scare you about how giant high-speed rail is. That's why it's here. Not because we don't want it, but how important it is to be thoughtful about how it comes to the station. And this is just a representation of the massing of if they were over the rail yard as they were currently looking at it with their platforms and then a concourse above that. It's really big. That's what you gotta know, really big. And when they were initially planning, they were basically told you gotta hold everything still and find your way into the station. And we're changing the name of that game, right? We're saying, no, we're willing maybe to move things around. We can think a little bit more creatively about this. So all of this led us into our, that is the wrong word there, sorry. It's not program description. These are our guiding principles. The first is transit optimization. That is our first and foremost, most important thing that we're looking at. Have better operations. We want to be ready for future transit expansion and make a great passenger experience. The second guiding principle is destination. We want a vibrant mix of uses to have a 24/7 place. We think the historic station is really critical to creating that place. And we want sustainability to be part of this destination. And finally, connectivity, and this means so many things. It means being able to connect your transit uses, being able to have accessibility for bikes and pedestrians and people with limited access, have pedestrian and bicycle mobility across the site, and to use public open space to bring people across the site and really unify it. And I added this in. We did a lot of technical thinking and talking, and we had this program. I think the vision part is also really important. So here's Union Station in a mile radius. A lot of folks are like, well, there's all this great stuff happening downtown, and we're the eastern edge of it, and we need to connect to downtown and be a great destination as part of downtown. But then we say, well, there's the arts district. There's great stuff happening there. And there's the Cask area in Chinatown, and a lot of action happening, and a lot of hope and vision for that area. And then we've got the Boyle Heights area, East LA, the river, and Lincoln Heights, and a lot of interest in planning efforts to connect better. So we say instead that Union Station is the center of an expanded district. It's not the eastern edge of downtown. It's the center of something bigger. So beyond all the technical and these guiding principles, this is something that we're thinking about, and that's driving us when we look at the future of the station.
Do the people who live in that have input to what's going on?
We have a database of stakeholders broader than these areas and beyond, and we regularly send them e-blasts, and we ask people to come out and have input, so we try. I can't speak for every one of them, but we've done a lot of public outreach. Have a question?
Well, I'm aware that
Yeah.
my friends at the Pueblo are scared to stiff of what they hear going on
The merchants, I mean, we've had people from the Merchant
here.
Association
People
on our.
that work, that go to that church are scared. People who live anywhere out there, they're just frightened. Their fear is palpable when I communicate with them.
About what?
They don't understand what you're doing, and they think you're gonna condemn the whole place. I mean, that's bad press.
Yeah, well, we definitely have outreach to the folks at El Pueblo, including Father Estrada of La Placita.
Yeah,
I've talked to other users. We have all our materials in Spanish. We put out materials in Spanish, and I'm assuming that community is a primarily Spanish-speaking community. I speak Spanish. I talk to people on the phone. So if that's the concern, they should get in touch with us or get involved in our meetings, because we've tried really hard to reach out. And there's no message that we're taking anybody's property, and in fact, with our linkages study, have some opportunities to do some great coordinated, well, I'll show you the first stage here and you can see. So that's, I mean, fear is fear. And fear is not usually based on real things, it's fear, the unknown. Yeah.
But nothing in your project encroaches Olvera Street, so
No.
I'm not sure why it would be
I think that's the point, I think it's fear
concerned.
based
3
on,
blocks into Olvera Street, why
Yeah.
there would be demolition?
it's not. The mosaic should have fear. But we've told them now, we've called them up and said, you should be afraid.
Don't be afraid.
And what they said was, fine, that's an expensive property. Yeah.
Did you say there would be a Greyhound terminal in the plan that you used to?
No, there will not be a Greyhound terminal, there will be a bay, bus bay.
Bay.
Yeah.
There's no Greyhound Bay now, no
No.
Greyhound presence?
There will be soon, actually, there are negotiations to bring a bay to the station. Bolt, just the Bolt, that's like their megabus type services.
Megabus is right out here.
Megabus is on Pepper Plaza, yeah.
Does that fit in also?
They'll have bays. So let me get to the bus part. So I showed you those program, the guiding 3 guiding principles, and transit first was the first. So what our team did is acknowledge that there's some big puzzle pieces that have to come into place before we can figure out where the parks and the open space and the bike paths and even the development go. And those 3 big pieces they identified, because I don't think it's here, it's a new co-located bus facility to deal with the mess of buses in the area and the spread of buses all around, to have a new large multimodal passenger concourse, a place where you can come in and orient yourself. So instead of everybody coming in that passageway and trying to figure out where they're going, you need a larger space just to fit the people, but also to get the information, to have the amenities available that you're gonna wanna have as a transit rider. And then the third big transit component is high-speed rail, to accommodate it in the future. And Jeff asked me earlier, what is our position on high-speed rail? And what I said is, our position is, we will accommodate it at a time in the future, but we can't be reliant upon it. So that's what's driving we're not gonna have a big giant gaping hole in our plan for them to come and fill in. And that's a tough challenge. So those are three main components, or what drove the initial alternatives, and I'm gonna show you how those are playing out and how we looked at different ways to configure those on the site. In this evolution, this is the evolution of Union Station in stages. But I do wanna note that we don't have conventional rail expansion as one of our main transit components because of the script. The Run-Through Tracks project will expand conventional rail capacity by 40 to 50%. So we assume that's coming. We are not going to do things that would further constrain. For example, this building in the East Portal took out, a couple of platforms and really constrains expansion east. And then the Gold Line, constrains expansion going west of the track. So we will not do anything that further constrains expansion of the rail yard, but we don't have a specific component that you'll see that's about expanding the yard because of the script project.
When you referred to run-through, I'm not sure I heard everything, but is that run-through contingent upon high-speed coming?
That run-through is funded in that first $1 billion that, well, half of it's funded, we have to match. It's funded in that first $1 billion of projects that High-Speed Rail is funding through their first bond issuance.
I guess my question's a different way is, if high-speed rail doesn't come, there will be no run-through, is that correct?
No, run-through's going forward. So if High-Speed Rail never comes,
It
run-through
is
got
going
half
forward
paid for.
independent of high-speed rail.
Yeah, it's being paid for by the High-Speed Rail Authority partially, and whether, if it gets paid for and then High-Speed Rail never comes, well, they paid for that. And they've dramatically expanded our conventional rail capacity in the state of California, so it's not bad. So I'm going to show you an evolution of these transit components and how we're considering two main options over time. Yeah.
So there never was a bus depot downtown?
There never was a bus depot downtown. I can't answer that question.
When I was a kid, there was a big warehouse.
I mean, do you mean the Greyhound
No,
facility down the
I
center?
know Greyhound used to be in the toy district, Skid Row, and then it moved over. But there was never an MTA coordinated bus facility
Anyone
downtown?
out here? I don't know. So the first stage of the master plan is accessibility and really making this a great place through programming and softening our edges. So this is the front of the station, just oriented, right? This is the historic station. This is our forecourt. So we imagine some way of greening the forecourt and making it available for programming, to do some traffic calming on Alameda, maybe through a median, streetscape improvements, and to have a great pedestrian spine connecting us across the street to El Pueblo, opposite of what their fear is. We would be driving traffic and facilitating traffic into El Pueblo.
So the parking lot comes out?
Some of the parking, you have to keep it available partially for parking and for drop-off pickup, both for transit functionality and because of its historic use. You can't totally do that. These are just images. This isn't the full plan yet. This is just where we're in the directions we're thinking. So this is a section of imagining. Here's the station. There's activity happening in the forecourt. Here's Alameda feeling more pleasant, and here's El Pueblo. This is the vignette to give a sense of what we're going for, and I found this to be much more helpful than those diagrams to give a sense of the feeling and the vision for the space. And then we imagine this activity then creates interest in the ticketing hall, and this is if you're looking out that way. Here's some of those doors that are always closed that face out to our parking lot in Alameda. Imagine those opening and spilling out onto this forecourt and lots of cool stuff happening in the ticketing hall. So we've enlivened the place. And then we imagine on Cesar Chavez, you can similarly do streetscape improvements. And then if you've ever tried to walk under this tunnel, under the rail, it's very, very, very unpleasant. So start thinking about ways to make it just an easier walk, to soften the perimeter. And there are some ideas of art you can do, in that walkway area. And then similarly along Vignes, to try to make that nice, to do something immediate at this bus stop here, to have a new drop-off and loading kind of zone. So this first stage is sending the message out there that we're making changes here. Come visit the station. It's a great place to be. We're going to have programming. We're already starting doing some programming now. They had a movie event, they showed Chinatown, we had 400 people here. We're looking to do some music, and then there'll be a lot of activities when we do the 75th anniversary. So we're trying to change the perception. During that time, we're gonna be knocking on the door of the feds, looking for money for our large transit improvements, and we think the developers are then gonna come knocking on our door and lead us into the second stage, yeah.
Quick, two very quick questions. First one, I was already gonna blow up the Denny's, just, okay. Anyway, the real one is, the Harvey House. You talked about opening up the old ticket concourse. Fabulous
Yeah.
idea. What about the old Harvey House?
Right now, they're entertaining options for doing some leasing, primarily restaurant focused.
But primarily leaving it the way it is and using it as a restaurant?
Yeah, yeah. So all of this activity, anything, if people want to lease out more space and create more, retail, great stuff, bringing people in and out, that's what they're looking for right now. So the second stage then would be these transit improvements, the bus facility, the passenger concourse, and some initial development that we think would happen. So this is where I talked about these main transit components. We did a lot of study, our team, a lot of study, including with a lot of it with our rail and bus operations folks. And what it boiled down to was two main configurations that we're carrying forward for this bus terminal and the passenger concourse. The first is to have a north-south concourse, so you would take down that baggage building that's currently right behind the historic station and make that into a large multimodal concourse. And then here, this is the Mosaic Apartments, that was my hint about us, those are the people that should be afraid. A two-story bus facility here. So you're alleviating your Cesar Chavez traffic. You no longer, means Petsaris Plaza is no longer our bus plaza. Yes?
Wouldn't it make more, I'm sorry, I know these are all preliminary, but I'm with the gentleman that was saying blow up Denny's. Wouldn't that be a better location to have a multi-bus terminal?
No.
Because then you could have,
Yeah.
you could have a walk, you could
So-
walk across.
Yeah. That makes it a longer transit connection. First off, it's not big enough. I'll start there. It makes it a longer transit connection. If we're trying to get closer into the action here, and we'll get into the vision, we're trying to repurpose and rethink the east side of this property. And the reality is, in the 25, 30 years where we've had complete entitlements, 3,500 parking spaces, building pads ready to go, and secret clearance, no one has developed on this side of the site. And I don't know how many of you someone's in the real estate world, I don't know if when you're selling to a major office user, you sell to them a bus ring right outside your window. Maybe, maybe not. So I think in rethinking the east side of the property, apart from all the operational issues that we're trying to alleviate by not having the buses on the east side, that's another one, is if you want to create vision and think expansively, we need to really radically rethink the east side of the district.
On the north side, you're saying that
North.
purple underneath where you always will say a two-story bus facility there? That
Yeah.
means demolish the existing,
Yes.
recently built apartments that are there,
Correct.
is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
They are the casualty. I'm being flipped, and I shouldn't be being flipped about it.
Okay,
It's a big deal.
yes.
It's safer, though, than even trying to go near, well, these ones didn't work. I mean, really what it came down to isn't, again, I mentioned we had iterative rotations of blocking people in the room for hours and looking at options. So it really did come down to this, and that the mosaic was what we had to look at to make the property work. Because the buses are coming around through the Chavez, you need that access down.
So that building behind the purple is not the Mosaic, that's the.
That's the
old-
terminal annex.
That's Old Terminal
Yeah,
Annex.
that's a terminal. So we looked at options for trying to use that property. You can't take that down because it's historic, but even that didn't end up working
Is
out.
the old baggage terminal connected to the Amtrak offices?
Yes.
So that would all come out.
Yeah. So this one, instead, one thing I'll say is this is concentrating all your transit to the west, right? This is the front of all your transit here. This one is dispersing transit across the site, spreading it out. I mean, it's not far, but it's spreading and using the whole property. This one imagines taking our existing passageway and blowing it out to 4 times or so its size and making that our giant concourse. And then having the bus terminal here going north-south, which is a nice connection to the busway and to Cesar Chavez. This would be a 1-story bus loop, but it would actually be at the level of the rail. So you'd have an easy sight line of all of your transit modes, right here, so you could see your connections coming up. So this is where you get into who would be here, because they've been doing some technical studies. There'd be, a ring. This one's pretty complicated. in terms of how they're doing the technical study, but the regional buses, like the mega bus, or the flyaway that has idling, or the Bolt, would be on the top floor, and then the local that are coming in and out would be on the bottom. This one would have 2 different loops. So you would, the regional will go to one loop, and then the local will go to another to make the operations more smooth. And you have no cars interplaying with the entrance and exits for these bus facilities, which will greatly alleviate traffic. And then when you do the circulation planning for pedestrians, you make it really easy, because we have a lot of pedestrian conflicts right now with the buses on the Concourse Plaza. Yeah.
You mentioned early on about the run through and high-speed rail presenting really large visual impacts. Is that shown on any of this at all, where that might end up?
Where high-speed rail, that's coming. So this is stage 2. Stage 2 is just our initial transit improvements.
And what's the time frame for deciding one of these? Either one, it's either one or two,
Yes,
because
the time frame is October at the board.
to make the decision at the October MTA board meeting.
Correct.
So, and the staff is equally enthusiastic about either one?
No.
How does the staff vote?
So let me take you guys, I'm
Okay.
trying to actually, this is actually structured like a story. Yeah, I have a 6-year-old, I tell stories.
Well, we're engaged in
So
it.
I want to get through the story, like I know y'all are doing a good job, so where's high speed rail?
No questions
for 15
minutes.
Where's my red
No, I
line
appreciate
coming?
it, but, okay, there's high speed rail. And this was the first iteration of the alternatives. I'm gonna take you through a prettier version. But this is just to show you, in this first draft, we're really blocky and diagrammatic. What the team did, they looked actually initially at 36 ways we could have a high speed rail. We don't say on Union Station, we say at Union Station, because we think all around the station, we're a terminus here. So what they did is, when they looked at all these different options, and since you guys seem to know, what they did is they looked at all the major transit components, including even the gold line that we decided we can't move. Looked at them individually, every way they could think of it. And then we sifted through all these criteria, and it took them down and down and down. And then the ones that rose to the top, then they amalgamated them. They said, okay, how would they work together? And what they came up with from doing that process was this best in breed, as they call them. These were the best mixes of the transit, the 3 big transit components, right? The bus, the concourse, and high-speed rail. And I'm going to take you through each. I'm just showing you this. You're going to see them again. But first, since we're still in stage 2, yeah, I knew you were going to ask about the rails. Put that in, high-speed rail. Stage 2, we're still in the second stage, no high-speed rail. The front is beautiful, the sides are beautiful. We're getting money from the feds. What is this going to look like? The first, then, is a ground floor plan of this north-south concourse. So here's this concourse. Here's the bus facility. These are above the tracks. We still need to get this east-west connection, so we still imagine something bringing more connectivity to east and west, which is really critical.
But it's going over the top
Over
rather
the
than
top.
underneath.
Over the top of the tracks.
Mhm.
And here's your, this is just giving you a quick diagram of your circulation for the bus rider and making their connections and going in and out. There's a circulation for the red line or purple line. Here's your gold line circulation up to the platforms. Here is existing platforms that we have. And then here's your basic knot of transit uses right here. So you're seeing a nice connectivity, and that was one of the things we heard was important and we think is important. This now is imagining this view where we start seeing these ghost buildings. These are where we start imagining development layering on top of some of these transit, because everybody got excited from all these changes and they decided for a hot spot, and they came and started developing. So in stage 2, before high-speed rail, just doing these improvements, we then start imagining what kind of place is this. So this is a little word diagram with the programming. So the first you imagine we have these areas that are serving the transit functionality. So your ticketing and your transfers and your baggage. You then layer on the retail amenities for your transit users. So the grab-and-go food and your coffee and the shoe shine guide. You then add on the programming and amenities that bring non-transit users to the site. So your festivals, your programs, your really cool restaurant, bar that you come to after work. And then you layer on your development. And now you've got a really great active site that's the center of something really cool. This, I'm going to show you the same thing for the east-west passenger concourse. So here is, this narrow part is the passenger concourse today. So these parts are blowing out under the rail yard, which is kind of free space other than how expensive it is to do that. And our team was imagining these kind of sunken areas, so right outside but next to the flow of traffic, but areas where you have your amenities and your information, or you can sit and wait. So this is your large concourse area. Here is the bus facility connecting. And here you see, the mosaic has to go to make this work, so you imagine some retail kind of stuff here. And this is retail, in case you can't see it, framing that. And then here's your bus transit connections. Here's your red line. Here's your gold line. Here's what's interesting, because we're now,
I want to see. Back
Okay.
up one.
there's the gold line, those are the
Back.
platforms.
I'm not conceiving.
Okay, so this is the existing rail yard.
Uh-huh.
This is where the gold line platforms are. So if you were getting off, if you're on a bus, you would come down and then you go right there in the concourse and go up to this platform. So this is just showing you the connectivity where your
They're on
transfers.
different floors? So you're
Yeah, the
going, you're
concourse-
going up on an escalator down?
Yeah, this would all be, the transit would all be on this level, as it is now. The rail yard's on this level, and below it is that passageway that exists today. So you go up the ramps or up the stairs to get up onto the platform level. So this is the same thing, because as I mentioned, the buses would be at the same level. So you go down and then just make your transfer up, back up. So this is showing, so the interesting thing about this is you saw earlier, right now, right, all the platform connections are on either side of the passageway. When we do this, we start to spread this and disperse people getting up, which actually helps traffic a lot, because you can disperse the boardings and alightings. It also actually lets us address major ADA accessibility issues that we have with these ramps, because right now only one side is accessible, not enough elevators, etc. So this one really spreads these out and reimagines where the ramps and the elevators and escalators would be. The other thing I'll say, I can't tell you if it's possible or not. So this is the transit right here. So this spine, this diagonal is a big connector piece, right, between, because a lot of people are going from bus or gold or even Metrolink onto the red or purple lines. And these two are the red and purple lines. They mentioned, I don't know at all if this is possible, but our wild architects think that when they do the run-through tracks, they're going to raise the platform. So that's when this would have to happen. They're going to have to raise up 1 to 4 feet, we're not sure, in order to raise the tracks high enough to get over the freeway and loop around. So that's when all this would probably need to happen, since you're raising the yard anyway. But he thinks you could spread the platforms a little bit and get light into that area. I think that sounds awesome, but I don't know if it's possible. So I'm going to throw that out there. So the same exercise and programming for this option. You've got your transit functionality, you've got your amenities, you've got your other non-transit amenities or transit, and your office and retail and new development. And there is this great place in phase 2. Stage 3 is high-speed rail. So we're assuming all of this can happen before high-speed rail is even ready to come. And here's our 4 high-speed rail options. So this one is the pairing high-speed rail with the east-west bus facility and the north-south concourse. This takes their current preferred alignment. Right now, their current adopted environmental plans have a couple different approaches as they're coming to Union Station, but they actually narrow it down to just one station, which is over our rail yard. And theirs actually has it over with a concourse above it. So that's their current. So what we've said is if you're over, this is going to be a shared concourse. You don't need the concourse above. You can come and we can have a big shared multimodal concourse. So that's what's different in this one from their current preferred alignment. And we imagine more development on this one. More development happening over time. Next one is under Alameda. This one's pretty wild. It would have to be 100 feet deep to get under the red line here, because the red line runs diagonally across this way. Their alignment, I mentioned in their current alignments, they go they dive under the cornfields, and they go beneath, and then they come up in portal around Main Street, and then come up and go over our rail yard. So this one imagines they just stay underground, past the cornfields, and under our station. And then much like a lot of European stations where they're small and they don't have room for all the new stuff they need, they build under. So there would be an underground concourse. Under the station right now, there's parking and all kinds of basements and stuff. You would repurpose that as a concourse underneath. This little blue is meant to be their portal where you go down. you would connect into this, and this is the T-shaped one. This is the bus, you see the purple here a little bit, and this is the expanded concourse.
But underground would have to be cut and cover.
This, I'll just be honest, the FRA said no way to 100 feet deep, so this one is not very likely.
There's a 10-story cut and cover, 1,000-foot long.
Federal Railroad
box
Administration.
is-
Yes, it's the Federal Railroad Administration, they have to approve all the environmental for the high-speed rail. This one is again, the bus here is the purple, same concourse that you've seen, the east-west. This is a high-speed rail staying above ground, but going back on Vignes and taking out Piper Tech, which is the big 20-acre property right there. That's a big industrial back office use for the city. And we imagine their concourse here with some kind of nice connection across Vignes. And a lot of people think that looks really far. From here to the bus is about the same, as from the front of our station of Vignes. It's maybe quarter-mile, 5-minute walk. It feels very long now because it's not pleasant. We think a 5-minute walk is reasonable for a high-speed rail transfer, and most people would actually be transferring from the high-speed rail probably to the subway, more likely than the buses. It's just a general kind of user imagining, but it's not too far, and you might do a people mover.
Seems passengers on long-distance trains are carrying luggage with them.
Yes. Yeah.
It's got to be, you can't get them going up and down too much, or they just can't.
Yeah, it
They're not gonna
really
like
wouldn't
it.
be too much different than an airport in terms of, you probably have an escalator up or down, and then you could do a people mover in certain things. But you walk a good 5 minutes in an airport with your bags. So it's about like that. And I think more high-speed rail users probably, who have a lot of business users and such too, so it'll be a mix. Yeah.
So in this proposal, do you have to take out all of Piper Tech or just take out the edges of Piper Tech?
Well, in this, again, these aren't fully fleshed out, but they just know, right? So here they're showing development. This is the rest of Piper Tech. This is just kind of the diagonal cutout. I mean, the reality is the city, we've had some discussions with different folks in the city, and they haven't said, yeah, awesome, let's do that. But they have said, they understood what we're saying, and especially, I think, is it today, tomorrow, we're supposed to see these 3 alternatives for the river, and we'll see what kind of fight the city's gonna put up to get $1 billion plan to restore, parts of the LA River, which would connect right to here. This is a major asset. I mean, this is what separates us from the river. So I'm curious, and I don't have an answer for you guys, to see how the city, what position they take on this and the connection to the river and repurposing Piper Tech and that property as an asset. Right now, the land value isn't much. But if this starts going and the river starts really happening, I think the land value becomes an asset to the city and much better used than a bunch of, big process like crime lab stuff. And they have a helipad and they have like the empty ticketing, they empty the parking meters and stuff. It's a big, weird mix of uses that got shoved there.
That could be anywhere.
That could, exactly. Some of it has to be close to the downtown civic center part, but, so it's a good question, and I don't have an answer, but this is the vision part, right? How do you think cohesively?
It is a very strange building. It's like a huge parking garage,
Yeah.
offices.
Yeah, and it's all brick, it's all wall
Yeah.
brick. And then this last one, similarly, this is underground. So high-speed rail stays underground, it goes under Vignes and under Piper Tech here. And so the connection would be underground into, we can imagine some kind of concourse here and on the east side of the property. And this is the same east-west,
Can you
north-south.
use the tunnel boring machines to do underground, or is that cut and cover too?
I think high-speed rail we have a lot of discussions with them because they've looked and thrown out most of these options. And when we look at the reasons they've thrown them out, it's been like too hard, nowhere to portal. City said no to Piper Tech. It's been very cursory. We haven't done engineering studies to say what you could or couldn't do. We think you could do cut and cover. If I were to measure, this would only be 60 feet underground because it could go parallel to the red line, so it's not as deep, and the FRA didn't bulk this one. There's different reasons that high-speed rail, you could say it's cheapest to go above our rail yard, but how expensive is it to do construction while we have a operational rail yard? You can only do it at night. You gotta be really cautious, you have to do it in stages. There's difficulties to all of it. From the master plan, from Metro's perspective, having them go east is the easiest, because we deal with our property, they come. And we'll do some things to be ready for them on the east side, but it makes it easier to keep this place running and going while it comes without that major impact. But still further to be discussed. But I think the key point with these is what you'll see is our bus concourse configuration. Most of them, while they have suggestions for what works best, most of them can work with all these high-speed rail configurations. So we're not going to go to the board and say, high-speed rail must go right there, and that's it, or else no way. We can say, we want to plan for our site, and we do need to get more clarity with high-speed rail, because depending on where they go, it has implications for how we plan for our concourse and our bus facility and these different transfers and connections and open spaces. So we do need to get further along. We don't have to draw a hard line in the sand. Right? And I think that's really important.
Well, you were talking earlier about run-through tracks and so on, and you said that's not necessarily dependent on high-speed rail and such or something. Does that mean that it's possible that the tracks, one or more of the tracks existing now, in essence, you'd use that alignment run-through somehow?
That is what's going to happen. So this is faded slight here because we don't know exactly the alignment. The run-through tracks project, they're about to go to bid for engineering and environmental. Actually, I think it's going to go all the way through into full design. They're going to take, I'm pretty sure it's the westernmost tracks, and they're going to extend them over the freeway, and then it's going to loop around and connect back into all the rail. That's happening.
So that'd be like Metrolink, people like that using that?
Metrolink and Amtrak would be using it, and so that instead of coming in and reinitiating and going back out, they can run through, and that's what's going to increase their capacity by 40 or 50%.
And then on the high-speed rail option, in essence, came over on top or whatever of that.
Yeah, they come over.
So if you stood back over here, like the Lara Street area, we're looking at Union Station, see this massive thing behind it or something?
Yeah. Less massive if you don't have a concourse above the platform, but yes, it's massive. I mean, they're 1,400-foot long platforms.
That's how long their train is.
Long.
I mean, what would the design of that be like? Would there be open appearance to it, or what?
I don't know. We're not designing it. I mean, I don't know.
When you've referred to high-speed rail, unless I'm misunderstanding you, it sounds like almost like, well, whatever high-speed rail says they want, we have to accommodate them.
No.
No, you've done the opposite.
I mean, you've been saying when high-speed rail comes, if they want to do this, if they want to do that, and then you've been saying what you would do, and high-speed rail, the state, this is county, and so how does that get worked out?
I mean, in terms of,
Is it
I
all
think that-
negotiation, or is
yeah,
there?
what we're trying to have is a collaboration,
Okay.
not a drawing your guns and
I
drawing.
just
I
wanna
think that's my
clarify.
point. So, to date, what they've done is gone ahead and planned, but fortunately, what the Southern California director said when we started this process is, look, we know it's your property, and since this segment, Anaheim to LA segment, is phase 2, and they're focused right now in the Central Valley, they paused. They've gone so far with their process, and they put a big pause, and it doesn't slow them down because they don't need to get this stuff done. And they said, all right, do your thing, and then we're going to keep talking. So they put a pause on their planning. They don't wholeheartedly go with whatever we say. There's more discussion to be had.
The game changer on this is Metro now owns the property.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Before Metro
yeah.
couldn't really
Yeah.
say very much either.
Yeah, Catellus didn't have that authority.
Yeah, they could have taken it from Catellus or taken it from
Yeah,
me. They're
exactly.
not going to do that. I don't think anybody's, I don't actually know legally who trumps who, but nobody's interested in going down that road. Okay, we're almost done. Stage 4, this is the vision.
That's 20 years from now.
Way more than that, probably. I mean, high-speed rail is supposed to be coming 2028, 29. I think they're supposed to be here. Okay, less than, not way more than 20 years. This is some point out in the future. It's really hard for folks. This is the fear and the unknown, when I don't have a timeline. It's really hard. So I understand that. The most I'll say is the stage 1. I'd love to see that happen in the next 5 years, and given that most of our board are elected officials, they might agree, because they're going to want to see some stuff
Could be the
happening.
same time frame as Subway to the Sea.
Yeah, but we have to find the money. This is a vision, and I've actually just, I've asked our team to fill this in too, because the intention is to say north and south. But this is, this is us being really wild, showing fiber tech. But it's the vision, this new urban district with all these uses spread across, and then this really nice vision of this big expanded area. And really, this isn't actual, this is just to give you a flavor, because people think in different ways. Some people think in sections and diagrams, and some people think in these kind of images.
You're looking at it.
Yeah.
That's
So,
elevator.
last slide here are our next steps. We're working on a cost estimate, an order of magnitude cost estimate, and further analysis, particularly of how the bus facilities could work. We don't want to recommend anything that wouldn't work. On September 18th is our workshop, and we're going to talk about this with our board. And then in October, we're going to ask them to pick one of those bus concourse mixes. And then they're going to really be developing the plan. We'll be having a lot of discussions with High Speed Rail about how much engineering they're willing to do going forward. They look at these options. We'll do these implementation memos that will start getting into the burning questions about phasing and financing. And then we'll have our final community workshop and go to the board in the summer. And what I'm talking about is having a community workshop sometime here in between, like a check-in workshop. That's the fifth thing we want to add. That's it. We have a project website, just so you know, all of our community, well, our two community workshops, one of them we had a problem with the Ustream, they didn't record it. But the other two, the most recent two that are the most exciting ones, are on our webpage. You can stream them and then also get access to all the presentations that we've done. And all these slides come from presentations that we've done. I mixed and matched them. And that's it. And then we have an email that I often read myself or another team member read them, and our phone line, and that's it. Yeah.
If you go back to one of the views, vehicles. How are you dealing with cars, parking, and Alameda? How busy do you think Alameda will be when this is all built out?
Well, they've done traffic counts on Alameda, and it's actually functioning at a high level. It's the east side, it's the Chavez, Vignes Ramirez, which is the street that dead ends into our parking garage. That is like a level service F, those signals.
I missed your English.
Sorry?
Say the sentence. It's
Yeah, the Chavez, to find a better sense of what that's, you're not good at getting a sense of that intersection. The intersection on the east side of the property, look here, this is Vignes, this is Ramirez that comes up along Hypertech, and this is Chavez. This area, these signals have a level of service, that's how they measure traffic impacts of F. So the answer about parking is, we haven't gotten into parking at this stage because we're looking at the transit first. There will have to be some new parking, and we're gonna have to take out some parking and replace it. So in the third task, when they really get into the master plan, we're gonna have to look at places to have some more parking and replace parking that we take out. We haven't done it yet.
Would you need parking for 10,000 cars a day?
Right now, there's 3,500 spaces in this garage. Off the top of my head, I can't remember how many on the front surface lots, and we're generally about 60% used. And that's a lot of employees on the site. And there are rare days, like when Comic-Con happens in San Diego, and everybody comes to take Amtrak, you cannot find a parking spot to save your life. It's very hard. So right now, we have enough parking. If there's more development, we're going to need more parking, and more transit users, if they're long-term, will need more parking. But there's a question of policy here. As a transit hub, how important is it that we provide parking for everybody at this site versus encouraging people to take transit and get here? This is the most transit accessible place in the entire county and beyond, so. Yeah.
Okay, excuse me, confirm what decisions are going to be expected to be made by the board? You said October 24th?
What we're gonna ask them to do is give us direction on, it's way back. Did I go past it?
Yeah, I think you did.
Is it backwards? I feel like it was before,
You're
it
looking
was
through
not,
the
it was
floor
after.
alternatives?
Before
Oh,
this.
it's because it's stage 2. I understand why I did that now. It made sense to me at the time. One of these. That's what we're telling you.
So your main thing is figuring out where the buses go?
Which bus concourse configuration should we plan for? And then we're gonna plan lots more about parks and open space and bike lanes, and we know that's gonna be part of it, we showed you that, but you can't, until you know where these big chunks go, you can't plan for the rest of it.
Do the apartments go under either scenario?
Yes. I mean, you could on this one, maybe make it work if you had to, but it's tough because they're counting on that space for ingress, egress, and they need the space, that's more bus, this is about 20 bus bays all in, so we really need the space for the
Are they
circulation.
affordable housing, you have to relocate or anything like that?
That is not affordable housing, but you do have to relocate when you use federal dollars. Yeah,
So you said that staff preferred an option, but you couldn't say which one it was.
that's correct.
And you're not going to.
Well, when you say staff, I mean, staff means a lot of people. I'm a staff person, my boss is a staff person, Martha Wellborn is our boss, then there's all the bus and rail people, and we haven't all sat down yet and come to a consensus. So,
Does the board usually do what staff recommends?
I can't answer, I've only been here 2 years.
And the other one.
Yeah,
what the board wants to do.
thank you, yeah.
I-
I mean, the
I'm
board
just-
could very well say, you're crazy, we're not taking out Pet Service Plaza, so figure out something else.
I guess being uninitiated to
Yeah.
the city, and county, and government bureaucracy processes, I'm curious, how does the board get, you say they're gonna decide between these two, there were originally 4, am I right? So
Well,
somebody's
there's 4 alternatives, but they all rotate on various
on these 2
Yeah,
backbones.
yeah.
How does the board make a decision on something like this in, between now and October? It sounds, I mean, it seems to me that this is,
Have you all made a decision? I'm just curious.
well, if you're assuming that we have,
Yeah.
but I'm not the board where the responsibility's on my back and I've gotta live with it the rest of my life. I can't imagine how they make that decision, and I'm just saying, can you clarify that? And when you don't know where high speed is gonna go or wants to go, how do you make this decision? Both of those
So I think the key
mind-boggling
thing
to me.
to know is these 2 came out of tons and tons, I mean, so much work. And so when we bring these forward, there's a certain faith and trust and understanding that we're not just willy-nilly bringing some junk that somebody drew on the
That's
floor
why
with
I
some
asked
chalk.
if the board normally does what staff
Um,
recommends.
I don't know, because I'm too new here. I think it behooves us, staff, to do briefings, which I do a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah.
I mean, the reason I wasn't sure of the order of this presentation is I've done so many iterations of this, depending on the crowd, in the last week, that I can't remember something. I try to change the order depending on the audience and put more or less.
Yeah.
So we have a workshop to try to get them to pay attention, because they don't pay attention to presentations, right? The new rule is 5 slides, 5 minutes, that's it. So we're having,
Oh, wow.
yes, thank you. So that's why we're having the workshop. I reach out to their staff regularly. I do briefings with board staff and council office staff. So we're trying to get their staff educated to help them and have the deeper discussions. And we have a lot of meetings with our board staff. We've had several on this. So there's a continual process of not the board director themselves, but also their staff being educated. And again, when we go with a recommendation, we're gonna give them a lot of reasons. I mean, I can give you a lot of reasons why we brought to these 2, why we decided these are the problems, and then we're gonna tell them why we're recommending one, and then it's a question of trust. I mean, they gotta trust staff at some point. And I think it's not gonna be, we agree or disagree with which one is better. I think it would be more likely to be, we disagree that we're gonna shake up the whole east side of this property, that's too expensive, this is all too new, the mosaic is too new, that's too much, do something different. That could
More
happen.
global type stuff.
That could happen,
Yeah.
and I hope it doesn't, but that could happen. Because to me, this is about the vision, but
How would you respond if I was a board member and I said, how do you expect me to decide on this when we really don't know what's happening with high-speed rail? Are we gonna move forward on something like this? And I hope, this doesn't sound disrespectful, but because I'm ignorant about all this stuff, you know, I thought Patsaurus Plaza was the future for forever, and here it's obliterated in any of these plans. So the question is, if I was a board member, I'm saying, look, we just did Patsaurus Plaza, 15 years ago, and we're already wiping out. I don't want to make the same mistake again, especially since I don't know about high-speed rail. How would you answer that?
well, the first answer is, these work, as I showed you guys, without high-speed rail. Both of these, we have a really great transformed place without high-speed rail. So that's the first
So
thing.
these 2 options, you know would work regardless of what they want to do with high-speed rail.
Yes, so
Okay.
where's the vision? There it is. See this? No high-speed rail. Fantastic place. Bus operations better, transfers better.
But high-speed rail
Retail-
wouldn't potentially change that? You wouldn't have to wipe that out 10 years from now because?
No, that's
Yeah,
the
but this would
whole
all stay.
point. So with this one, north-south, high-speed rail would come over our rail yard, and we have planned for that.
Okay,
We're
so
ready.
this would not be like Pat Source Plaza disappearing,
No,
okay.
I mean, understand,
And Source Plaza is a driveway on the roof of a parking garage.
yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, it's not like.
At the time, I mean, it was supposed to be the hub.
If you actually look at the parking garage is the foundation
yes.
for future development that
Yes.
hasn't been built.
I see.
So it was always meant to be sort of a place filler.
Ah,
'Cause if you look at the footprint, there's foundations for a tower as big
Three
as
more of these
the
towers.
regular tower.
The vision was 3 more of these
Ah,
towers ringing Cat Service Plaza and linked together.
Yeah.
That was the vision. I mean, I don't know how much you guys know LA. It's entitled, it has sequel clearance, it has parking, and it has pads, and it was, nothing came. So the question, I wasn't around when they were making those decisions. The question is, okay, so how do we do something different? This time, not to mention, that's the vision part and the development part, not to mention all the operational problems we have with bus operations where they are. It is so easy to make that case. When I sat in a meeting about messaging today at the station now, and we were pulling our hair out of our head about helping bus users get around. It's so complicated. It was piecemeal up until now. And so the point is, we're not doing piecemeal anymore. We're thinking big because board, you told us to. I mean, I can remind them, I don't know if I put the goals in here. We'll remind them of the goals that they gave us for this process. And they could still say no. You're totally right. Totally right. I believe them, you can tell, right? I believe. I'm a reader. And most people get excited. That's my hope. People get excited about this. So if different kinds of people are getting excited, I have to believe some of our board's going to get excited.
Okay, when the next set of community meetings come up,
Uh-huh.
how important is the opinion of the community of the configuration as opposed to the board and whatever the board's doing?
You know, what we try to do in these configurations is understand what vision's important to the community, what are the transit needs that we're trying to meet, what are the problems. I mean, the wayfinding and the linkages are happening now, and that was like number 1 and 2 things we heard. We believe both of these options reflect those concerns of the community, and we're going to make a recommendation.
So can you go to the picture that have the 2 options?
Yes.
Is there a 60-second speech you could give of the advantage or disadvantages of the 2 options?
I'm too close to it now. You know what I mean? I'm so close to it, it's hard to do that. The advantage of this one is all your transit's knotted up here. Can I say, instead of the advantage and disadvantage, I'm going to tell you the different qualities of them. I mean, I think that's better. This one suggests that your historic station is transit amenities, right? You're really focusing on the west side of the property. Everything's really close and stacked, right? Where you make it, because this one would have high-speed rail likely above. Although, I mean, it could work back here, but then this was structured to accommodate that use. And even high-speed rail has a shared concourse. So it's really close. I think you can do a lot with getting buses, like you could have a cutout here so buses can really get off Cesar Chavez here. It's more challenging here. I mean, I can tell you they're really struggling making this 2-story bus facility work the way they want it to, and to be able to expand in the future. So that's why, and this one's tough right now, they're still working it out. But there's a lot of activity up here that's transit focused, and it's really close together, and I think people can like that. And then there's lots of room, for development here. Now, if high-speed rail's above, you can't really develop, you couldn't necessarily develop above this concourse. It might be too close, but it really frees this up radically, right? There's not a lot of transit use going on that side of the site, which could be good, could be bad. It could be good because it could be all development. It could be bad because you might want some of those transit uses, and that east-west connection isn't as important, so it doesn't catalyze the east side. Like the connectivity east-west isn't as addressed here, and we think that's part of the reason also that the east side hasn't been developed.
But you're already saying that purple lot at the beginning has significant limitations to accommodate all the growth.
A bus? This would still be more bus capacity than we have now.
That's easy.
But harder to expand.
Okay.
And they're in the midst of studying it, so it hasn't been really fully worked out. So this one has you're dispersing transit across the site. You're spreading the impact. And this expanded concourse is a radical rethinking. I mean, you have to rethink the east portal and the P1 level of our parking to connect this concourse and open it up. So you're forcing a radical rethinking of the east side here immediately, which is, you know, a benefit we think for development. Although it takes up maybe more space of what could be development. This one suggests the reuse of the station more, not necessarily for transit, because your transit amenity would be in this large concourse, but maybe more for like kind of the retail or other uses. So this becomes more of a destination place here in the front, in this one. So it suggests different uses for the historic station. This bus works nicely as it connects to El Monte and to Cesar Chavez both. You don't have the same ability, although, I mean, they're still studying, you could possibly have a cutout here for the buses that are just going through. But either way, they would have a smaller loop, loop around and out.
Where's the red line? You come in
Red
on
line?
that. Because the red line is on the east
The
side.
red line is diagonally across the site this way.
The station now.
The red line doesn't change. So here's, this here and this here are the red line, where you go down, and purple. This is the passageway as it exists today.
Yeah, that long tunnel.
Yeah. And then, you know, if you know that area, there's a Wetzel pretzel and you loop around, you get into this side. Or here, it's in the east portal and you go down.
I get lost every time I do it.
Everybody does.
Some
And one of my
people
favorite
never
things
come
is to
back
figure
again.
out, like to help people when I'm coming, if I go out to lunch on the red line, purple line, I just help people find a way around the station that have bags. Because I know they're gonna get lost.
I just want to just kind of support the work you've been doing and acknowledge some of the hard work and otherwise thank this job for sorting through all these issues that are extremely complicated. So I just want to recognize the work you're doing.
I think I have a not
But
easy
it-
job, but it's not
yeah.
thankless, it's kind of awesome.
No, I think it's, and I just encourage you to hold that vision because I think the board's going to feel that vision and they're gonna come the direction that we need to go to make this be a popular attraction
Yeah,
in the future.
I hope so. I'm gonna try to be
Yeah.
bubbly and happy and not too nervous. They are intimidating.
Which way is gonna cost more? That's the first thing I think they ask.
They will ask that, and I'm not ready with an answer yet for that. We're still working on the cost estimates, but I could, from the preliminary, and I've seen a lot of issues, they're all within about 20% of each other, believe it or not. They're all within about 20% of each other, which.
20% of $10 billion?
Not 10, but they're all within 20% of each other, meaning that while it's expensive, and that will be a discussion, I don't think cost should drive one. You're not gonna say, I'm gonna pick this one because it costs half that one.
No politicians do it.
Yeah, that was the best thing, but there are a lot of problems with the cost estimates. Yeah.
As far as directing people, could you consider using the good old hospital method and put a red line on the floor with arrows, with signs, follow the red line to the red line?
That's not
The
high
yellow
tech.
line to the
Ladies and
yellow
gentlemen.
line?
The floor is one of the most historic pieces of the station, so no.
Yes, I know.
No.
No is the answer. I think the new wayfinding plan that we're working on, as much as it can, is gonna be great. I mean, right now, it's a cacophony of signs in there. Someone said to me, I can't tell what you're talking about, which sign, I don't notice. I said, because there's so many, you just blank them all out, because there's so many signs.
Well, I get the same thing that you do. Whenever I'm there, it is rare I am not asked, how do I find something?
You have a badge? If you're a badge, you're
No.
giving directions. Okay.
I don't.
Yeah.
Tom's famous, they know to ask him questions.
Okay, that's
Because
good.
he's there for the sandwiches. He's
Yeah.
at Subway every
Yeah,
day.
But again, with both of these options where you have this large concourse area, it just alleviates a lot of the confusion. I mean, I don't have an image, we will eventually, of what that space is like, but it's open. You can see where your transit connections are. You're like, oh, that's where the bus is. That, you just look and you see, and that's part of what's critical about wayfinding is the space, the layout has to be intuitive.
One piece of planning that, at one point, there was gonna be a way to connect the gold line to the red line, and I didn't
Mhm.
see that in the
Blowing that out.
presentation, so how does that fit into what you're doing, gold line to the red line?
Well, my understanding is that, I don't know how to show them here, that was gonna happen by blowing out a panel that's in between the two. that wouldn't exist anymore because we'd blow out that whole area. Well, that's not true. Only in the east-west we would blow out that whole area. The connection, well, first of all, that connection is partially going to go away if you're taking the regional connector, right? So you're not going to need to do that. But this connection, let me find this, between the red and the gold, you would still have to come down into this passageway and connect. But it would be an easier plan, because this would be completely reconfigured, that area.
That's not including the regional connectors.
No, the regional connector, you would just
Yeah,
do your
so
one
if
seat
you had
line
the
and go
regional
straight
connector, you don't have to
through. I
worry
mean,
about
the
this.
general sense is the regional connector is going to alleviate most of that problem. And I can say, because this has come up a lot, in the east-west also it's taken care of because you have this large concourse, but we're not at that level of detail yet. Once the board says that one, then they're going to get into the design and they'll know where the panels are and where the connectors are and be able to figure out a fancy way for those not doing the regional connector. They can't do it yet at this level.
Sure.
But that's an
okay.
issue that's come up a lot.
Okay, well, they asked.
Of the two, I mean, it seems fabulous, but I like the east-west one.
East-west,
Yeah.
concourse or bus?
Concourse.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a fabulous placemaking place, and it's really lovely. Have you had an opportunity then, I mean, what's kind of your plan as you see this developing, to take that out to, as you look at the circumference of all of the, and really change the paradigm that it's in the middle, not on the edge? Do you then take that concept to all of those people around?
You mean plan, we're not going to plan for,
No, I'm saying, would you then take it, then that's what goes into the workshop, right? The community workshop?
well, with the workshop, we've shown them this. And kind of, and then we have boards, and we have the team out at the boards to answer questions and get, and then we give comment forms to get a sense of, are we, first, what is your vision, what are the problems, and then are we addressing them?
You've gone pretty far to this point. Do you need any more after this thing?
The next step with the community workshop is to do a check-in as we're progressing with one of these.
Okay.
I mean, regular communication, like when the board takes action, and we're inviting people to the workshop, and we try to spread the word. So it'll be a check-in, just to, rather than just go from here to the final plan, have a check-in.
Here's where we are, this
Yes,
is what we're doing.
yeah, it's, you know, this can't totally be a design by consensus. I mean, we're not looking at density, we're not doing a land use plan, you know, like a community plan, it's a station. So, again, it's so far been really positive. So we'll do that, and then we'll do some workshop and probably do some road shows for the final plan.
They also have done quarterly meetings with downtown organizations
Yeah.
that represent almost all the groups to really listen to what the issues and the concerns are.
Broader than downtown, because we have like the Bike Coalition, and we have arts folks, and we've tried to have different constituencies that think it's important.
Why would people in the San Fernando Valley give a damn how it works?
I can't speak for people from the valley. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I'm trying,
yeah.
I live out there,
Yes.
and I'm just, I mean, this
They
is
would
so
use
far
it.
away.
Because they'll use it.
It almost seems like, you know, who wants to
Yeah.
go there?
Well, I can
It's
relate,
like-
because I think it's some similar demographic to like my mom in Culver City.
Yeah,
Her girlfriends think it's a hoot, and they use that word. Now, to take the expo line and come downtown and go to the music center and go see the theater, they would think it's more fun to take the regional connector, you know, or they still have to transfer, but come to Union Station, eat at some cool restaurant, and walk, you know, across, you know, and across the station, across Grand Park, and up to the music center. I mean, it's the placemaking. It's a great place. That's why I think they'll care. It's a great Los Angeles destination, or their son or their daughter or themselves will be opening a really cool restaurant down here. I mean, it's a great place in LA.
They're also paying for it.
They're paying for it, yes. Well, that's what we're
And
going to
if they don't get it, then they should become their own separate city.
No comment.
You'll be able to go, you'll also be able to go from Santa Monica Pier to
Yeah.
downtown Long Beach to Pasadena without even changing trains.
Yeah. I mean, I think this all goes into the fact that this is, I didn't say this at the beginning, this is the hub of our entire rail system. This is it. I mean, if you look at the picture, there's a dot in it. It spreads. So assuming you guys are fighting to have a connection to the valley, you know, through the 405, it's going to connect here.
it's,
So-
who wants to come down here to go to the LAX?
Oh, well, that's a pain. But why go to
Actually,
LAX, we go to
most-
Burbank?
A lot of people from downtown take the flyaway from Union Station to
Yeah, the
LAX,
flyaway's
and
not
it's a
bad.
million times
It's so
easier
much
than
easier.
going to
Yes.
So
LAX.
much easier to come
$8.
here. So much easier.
$8 and parking is cheapest parking in downtown, now $6 a day.
You could take it to Bob Hope.
Sorry?
You could take the train to Bob Hope and fly
Yeah.
out of there.
Yeah, but that's all locals.
Okay. I promised to read a few chapters of book to my kid, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna go home.
Okay, thanks.
Means I have to go
Thank
to
you.
work.
Yeah.